And there is correspondence, by the way, Mr. Chairman, which I can bring to the committee on some of these issues. So I don't want to engage in what looks like a political issue. As a public servant, I'm required to provide the information I'm asked of the committee. I provided information in writing on the 1st of September. I am prepared to bring further information in writing here in respect of this question, and I do not think it is fair for either me or anyone else to impute improper motive on the part of us public servants.
All right, I hear you, CS, but I'm interested to know that last part which you said, that you normally have evidence of request for security, and especially from such senior government officials.
I will table, not particularly here because I wasn't prepared to bring it. I didn't know that you'd be asking through this.
Not now,
yeah,
because we are engaging, and I can see we shall engage from now going into the future.
Yeah, well, whatever the committee requires of me in terms of sharing information on this particular issue, we will table whatever we have. Because in any case, as I said, this is not private information. This is public information. If we are asked or advised by our security officials on particular deployments and so on, or we are advised by our counter security teams to provide security in a particular place because of certain things, that is correspondence I can avail to you if it's so required to explain why I deployed security in that particular place.
Very well. I think that is it. Honorable Adoma.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've listened to Honorable Songkok and the response from the Waziri, and getting it right. I've not heard Songkok expressly say that he's dissatisfied with the response from Waziri today. Those other issues, I think, are side issues, and I would also urge my colleague Honorable Songkok that this is the CS for internal security, and is not just a minister, so I would want that also to be corrected, that when you are addressing the minister, you should address him with decorum. I saw you just referring him. He's not just any other ordinary citizen, he's an honorable minister of this Republic of Kenya. So I think if you are satisfied, you should not bring side issues, and if you had really facts on the ownership, then Chair, in my opinion, there would have been no point for him to come and appear, raise it before this committee. That is my take.
Okay, I'll make a ruling on that, and what I pick from you is the comma and full stops and the details about, nomenclature and all that, which is hard. I'll want to give Honorable Kaunya.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman, I have two issues relating to the particular question. One, it's true during the response on the issue of deployment of security, one of the major things that came out clearly is that security was deployed for the Deputy President in various areas, including his home, including other properties he owned. The focus was actually on the deployment of security. That I remember, Chair, I was present. But Chair, looking at the question, I have a feeling that the question seems to have been misplaced. Unfortunately, though, it had already been directed by the Speaker, because the question is specifically asking land details, which, as the CS has clearly indicated, is in the docket of Ministry of Lands to give the land reference numbers, the date of acquisition, previous ownerships, which are usually in the green cards and such records. Such records are domiciled in lands. I would have expected, Chair, that this question should have been directed to Ministry of Lands. It would have been much easier to get that information. And Chair, lastly, my suggestion, Chair, is that with all due respect, I think some of us have been in the public service, including yourself, Chair. Sometimes the process of getting these details takes time. But I would urge that Waziri takes it up, as he has promised, to follow up with the ministry to get the details, so that as soon as possible, then the response can be given, rather than trying to really make it an issue that is outside what was asked. So, Chair, that will be my recommendation. If you can make a ruling that Waziri gives that response, maybe with a given specific time for follow-up, then that would make progress. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. I will strictly request that we keep away politics from this engagement totally, and therefore we will want to move in this direction. That number one, we will get the PS Minister of Lands, whose letter has been addressed to respond to the question. And I need, because you are coordinating national government, to tell us the timeline for which we shall wait so that we can engage. And you have to engage again on this question, as well as the provision of the Hansard, which is referred to by Honorable Sanko. You need to provide that Hansard so that we can see exactly, in light of what the response will be and what the Hansard contains, then we can see how to engage in that meeting that we shall today agree on the date.
The issue of deployment of security to the properties owned by the Deputy President is totally different from the deployment of security to where the Deputy President visit. Because if we say deployment of security to where the Deputy President visit, then it will take a whole year, because he visit every corner of this country every day. So this one was deployment of security to properties owned by the Deputy President, as claimed by Honorable Dr. Fred Matiangi. And he actually went ahead, and you'll see in the answer that
no. Let's do this, Honorable Sankok. Honorable Sankok.
Yes.
Please.
But you know, when you lie, that
No. You're now using unparliamentary language.
Okay.
And I allowed it to pass like I didn't hear first time.
Thank you.
If it is inaccurate, say it's inaccurate.
Oh, it is inaccurate. You know, a lie and inaccurate.
Yes, but you know, parliamentary language. A committee is sitting, you know,
inaccurate.
is parliament at work.
So instead of saying lying, I say inaccurate. Yes, just to massage.
You know, not massage, Honorable Sankok.
Oh, inaccurate.
It's an issue of parliamentary language.
Okay. Then the information is.
Last time I heard you say that in the chamber, the speaker was not very happy with you.
No, I said it was inaccurate. Let me now probably put it in a parliamentary language. The information is inaccurate because it is not the issue of deployment of security to where the Deputy President visit, but deployment of security to the properties owned by the Deputy President, including his current home, including his Sugoi chicken farm, including the farm that Honorable Dr. Matiangi claimed that the Deputy President owned in Laikipia, which is 15,000 acres. And since he claimed he knows that it is owned by the Deputy President, I just requested, okay, table the evidence that it is his land, because you have claimed, the Deputy President have claimed,
and
he does not own.
Yes, and which claim you should also be presenting a Hansard report showing us that actually he claimed, because it is one-on-one. He came to report about deployment of security on his own installation where Deputy President has interest, probably owned or leased. I heard him say that just now. So what we need to do is get the actual written answer, get the Hansard, and then get the response from Ministry of Lands, and then we engage with facts on the table.
Thank you. I will wait for the answer, but this one is not satisfactory because I've really come 7 times. You know, the first question, it was 5 times.
And the issue of time also, I said we shall also revisit that time.
Yes.
From our secretariat. If it is 7, it will be 7. It will not be less.
You remember what
we shall have you to put it on record.
Recently, yes.
Yes, and then so that we make progress, we will need you to undertake in terms of timeline. When are you able to respond to this together with the PS? And if you can please come with the PS lands so that if there are any other queries about the history, because this question is fully loaded. I can see it's asking a land reference, number, size, date, acquisition, previous ownership. So it has a lot of history. Probably it needs to come with the entire file.
So Chairman, give me 2 weeks to consult with my colleagues before I come before you on this particular matter. But with your very kind indulgence, I sincerely take the comments that were made by Honorable Kawunya very seriously. This really is not essentially our question, because it's taking time, because I've got to go around to other departments that are outside my responsibility. But anyway, we are one government. In 2 weeks, I'll try to get you an answer.
So 2 weeks it is. Let us also get the answer. Any evidence that needs to be referred to, let us have a document regarding the same so that we are able to deal with facts on the table. That answered, and then the written answer from Honorable CS, then also the response or otherwise from Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, and any other relevant material or letter or document that will make us go over this matter once and for all. Yes, we have concluded that one. Honorable Chepkut.
Chairman, permit me to say one statement. I want all of us to be sober. I want all of us to use parliamentary language. I'm against vulgar language. Let's keep politics aside. And finally, Chairman, this question, the question is misplaced. It is Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning that are charged with all the title deeds and so on and so forth and ownership. About security, it is Honorable Dr. Fred Matiangi, who is charged with that responsibility.
Okay, I hear you. Because so we are reopening the matter. Let that man rest there. We have removed the political part of it. We just want factual and subjective that we shall get in 2 weeks' time. We shall give the date roughly about 2 weeks from now.
So
to
Chairman,
all the parties.
I just want in future, let's have robust truth engagement. That's all I'm pleading.
Very well. We will then move from that, Honorable Sankok. You will let us conduct business. If anybody who is in control, please make sure that we allow those online or virtually to only talk when they are given the mic. We'll then. Yes, the matter on question number 053
Chair, can you allow
is
me to
posted
leave?
on now. Yes, and we'll give you a date.
Can I prosecute my
Please,
question?
please, we are dealing with other matter. Control room, please ensure you do not just let everything loose. We cannot be speaking all of us. So, Honorable Sankok, we shall give you a date 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
Which we shall engage further with those facts on, and we want material facts.
Yes.
So that we can deal with things with evidence.
So am I the one to bring at the hands a report, or Honorable Dr.
You can get it. In fact, you can get in touch with the Secretariat. They will help you.
Could I register my presence? This is Rosa Bui from Kisumu. Thank you, Chair.
So now I can leave.
Yes, Honorable Sankok.
But please allow Dr. Kidicha Adan to...
Instructions given that they will assist you to get the answer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Chair, Honorable Dawood. Chair, can you hear me?
Have you muted that?
Chair, can you hear me?
You will either need to mute or get out. You commit. you have to quit. You have to quit that meeting, or you mute, please. And that needs to be done. Otherwise, we waste time listening to people who are not invited to speak. We will go to question number 074, which is by Honorable Geoffrey Otsotsi, and I'll ask Honorable Otsotsi to please proceed and ask the question as it is.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable CS. My question is question number 074 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government, and it reads, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the status of investigation into a complaint raised by Trust Media Group against Safaricom Limited for theft of copyright arising out of a tender floated by Safaricom Limited in 2016 for the provision of creative and digital services, launched with the Director of Criminal Investigation, DCI, via inquiry number 14 of 2021. Roman 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary further explain why DCI is unable to enforce its own summons against Safaricom Limited as contained in its letters dated 29th June 2021 and 15th July 2021? Roman 3. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of all the complaints filed with the police against Safaricom Limited regarding theft of copyrights, intellectual property rights, and other complaints? Lastly, Roman 4, what specific steps is the ministry taking to ensure that large corporations, in particular Safaricom Limited, comply with the existing laws and the ethical standards? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Honorable CS, if you can respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Honorable Sosi, for the question. There are 3 points to be made on this question, not in form of answer, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the questions where I would have liked actually to ask the indulgence of the committee to speak to the committee in camera because of the sensitivities involved in this. Number one, this is an ongoing investigation by the DCI. The number of people who have to be interviewed and record statements and the extent of the investigation is expansive and ongoing. To comment on an ongoing investigation in an open manner such as we are doing, quite frankly, is to be prejudicial to the whole process of investigation. Secondly, when you look at the institution that's involved and the implication of discussing, for example, Safaricom and its role and place in this economy, to discuss dimensions involving Safaricom in an open manner in this situation is also, again, prejudicial, not just to Safaricom as an institution, but to the place of that institution in the economy. Number 3, Mr. Chairman, I would need the guidance of the committee. Where do we draw a line between what you may call individual contracts between individuals and corporates and criminal acts? Because you see, when contracts are breached, which essentially are civil matters between the contracting entities, where does the law enforcement dimension of the executive branch come in? Because civil contracts or commercial contracts that assume a civil nature are such that we cannot necessarily step in unless we are invited by dint of criminality having been established. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to request you kindly, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I am able to discuss this question and its response in some level of detail if you grant me an in-camera opportunity. Or B, you allow me, Mr. Chairman, then to request guidance from the Office of the Attorney General and the National Security Council to discuss dimensions of this which are very sensitive, as it were. And this is not just to Safaricom, as it were. It's a question of the corporates that were involved and the number of companies and institutions that have made investments in Kenya. If they get into a problem as a result of commercial contracts or contracts of a civil nature, if we go open and discuss each contract and dimensions of it and so on, I think as a public servant and you as the people's representatives, we have to be conscious of the implications of this in the long run. So suffice it to say, Mr. Chairman, with your very kind indulgence, that A, the investigations are going on. B, DCI is not reluctant or has not failed to enforce any of its summons. The number of people have to be interviewed and the statements taken in this kind of investigation is expansive. It will take time for it to be completed. And when it's completed, the DCI, in consultation with the DPP, will make a decision on which way to go. Until then, Mr. Chairman, I will need your guidance. Am I allowed to actually comment or make sideline commentaries on an ongoing investigation of a sensitive nature like this?
Now, three things arise. One, the fact that this investigation from DCI, which the question is speaking to, in terms of what is the status and which DCI rightfully falls under your docket, and that gives it then live in terms of being before this committee. Two, the Honorable Speaker has approved this question in its nature, means then it has to be responded to, and therefore three, if you need to speak to the matters in camera, that can be granted.
I'm ready to make the presentation in camera, Mr. Chairman, on this matter. And then even then, I would still seek your guidance on where do we draw a line on the question I asked between commercial contracts of a civil nature and when they are broken or when they go wrong, what is our role? When do we step in? Because we know we step in as security people when criminality has been established, and until it has been established, we don't really step in. But as a responsible public servant, I'll give you all the information I have about this. But as I said, because of the sensitivity of this, it's something I would like to give you, honorable members, in camera, not in an open session.
Sure, but insofar as the DCI is involved, then you are looked in. That's why, and that's why it was approved by the Speaker. We'll allow you to give us brief in camera. So we'll pend that matter, Honorable Tsotsi, so that we can proceed with the rest of the issues that we can be addressed in public. Then after that, we'll ask members of the press later to leave so that we can get an insight into that question. So we'll then proceed, Honorable CS, to the next one, which is question 079 by Honorable Atandi. And I have information that the Honorable Okukaunya has been asked to ask this question on behalf of Honorable Atandi.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I will proceed to ask question number 079 of 2022 by the member for Alego Songa, Honorable Samuel Atandi, to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Roman 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the causes of increased insecurity in Siaya town, Siaya County, and its environs that has seen numerous cases of breakages in shops and homes, theft of properties, murder of MS Monica Nyango Oyodi on the night of 11th February 2022 at the Pandi Estate in Siaya town, and the shooting of a 15-year-old girl on 22nd February 2022 at Ngia Market. Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state whether any investigations have been carried out into these cases of insecurity, and if so, what is the status of the investigations, and have any culprits been apprehended? Roman 3, what measures has the ministry, particularly the security personnel in Siaya County, put in place to curb the insecurity in the said area? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Honorable Kaunya. Mr. Chairman, I have slightly departed from tradition on this particular question, and you notice that recently that's what I would like to do when I come before the committee. Namely, in addition to just answering the question, I provide lengthy, detailed information so that the committee can be properly informed, because I may make statements that the committee can very easily doubt if I don't back it with evidence, as it were. It is true that there have been cases of insecurity generally in Siaya, but it is not true that the cases have increased. If you look at the addendum to the question I have provided, I have gone to great lengths, Mr. Chairman, to document the reports we have of cases of insecurity in Siaya over a period of time. What you notice immediately is a very steady decline in the number of cases reported in Siaya over a period of time. When you look at the cases that were reported from the year 2020, in fact, I've started in 2019, 2020, 2021, and up to now, the number of cases we have. You can see cumulatively a very steady decline of the number of cases of insecurity that have been reported in Siaya across the board. So it isn't actually factual to say that there has been an increase in the cases of insecurity. The murder case that is reported here is one in many. If you look at what we used to deal with in the past, and I want to report to the committee, Mr. Chairman, that the case of the murder of Monica Anyango Woyodi is going on, and the investigations are at an advanced stage. The DCI has collected very useful information. They are doing forensic analysis of the evidence they have. They think they are within a shooting distance of the possible culprits in this particular matter. I would not like to go beyond there. The cases that have been raised by the Honorable Member of Parliament, I have explained what the investigations have been done and what the investigations have shown. We have areas where we have people who are undergoing prosecution. Mr. Chairman, you will notice in my answer that I have meticulously documented each one of these cases and each one of the reports that have been received by the police and the actions that have been taken in this respect. Suffice it to say, Mr. Chairman, that over a period of time, because of the changes we have had to carry out, we have increased security personnel in Siaya. We have supported the patrol of the police in Siaya, and also encouraged our provincial administration or national government administration colleagues to hold regular public sensitization engagements or barasas, as it were, where we involve civil society, opinion leaders. We have increased our engagement with community leaders in Siaya, and as it were, we have even introduced a hotline at the sub-county police headquarters, which we have provided to members of the public, 0783356123, and through these reports are being made, every so often to the police, and I can confirm to the committee, Mr. Chairman, without a doubt, that the cases of insecurity have drastically reduced. We are determined to reduce them even further, and with increased and additional resources that we'll put in during this and the next financial year, the cases of insecurity in Siaya will continue to go down as it were. I submit respectively.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will give the first chance of supplementary question to Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think the response I will hand over to the member, and I see it's fairly elaborate. Chair, thanks.
Anybody else who is interested in that matter? Okay, I want to thank you, Honorable CS, for that answer, including the annexed report on the crime prevalence rate per year, which indeed speaks to the fact that it's going down steadily. So that is concluded, and therefore we'll move to the next business. I see Honorable Koyo, MP, Mohoroni here. And I remember your statement was responded to. If you can do that on handset.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Remember, I tabled a question here on 2nd March 2022, which was responded to on 17th March 2022. But the answer was grossly inadequate to me, so I sought for further disclosure because at the time the PS did not seem to be in full picture that the issue of following up had gone up to the Court of Appeal and which had made a pronouncement, and that what we were following up now was just some cunning fraudsters who went and used an environmental court to rule in their favor, and they were moving in that direction to get benefit of the farm that belongs to the public or the government.
All right, this was a request for statement.
For statement.
Yes, regarding
Miwani Sugar Company land, Miwani Sugar Company land, estate land that belongs to public land, but was being claimed to have been bought by some company called Crossley. And Crossley does, you cannot trace them anywhere. You don't know the office, you don't know who are the directors. When it is the benefit, they have the farm. When the police are seeking for them, they are suspected to be fraudsters. It's an international company that is offshore, and the directors are not known. So the case had been taken up to Court of Appeal, sometimes 207, 208, and directors, those who are involved, were put in, and there have been criminal cases going on as the civil one also goes side by side. But sometimes recently they went through an environmental court and got an order saying that the land is theirs, and without serving the receiver managers with ample notice, they came to seize the land and belongings of Miwani Sugar Estate. And the public, from my cause, reacted, and this caused mayhem. I think nearly 10 people were killed. And I thought, but during this mayhem, the provincial administration did not come up. Everybody, we sought his intervention. My DCC was nowhere to be seen. The county commissioner was in Nairobi. The regional coordinator, when I got him, he was not aware, but later on he said they were acting. The police station that's very close to where the whole episode was taking place were not able to take part because they were waiting for orders from above.
Very well. I know this. There was a response to that statement, Honorable CS, and the Honorable Member was not satisfied, and we asked that we shall engage in future. He brought out some of those issues or facts, like he's stating, in terms of who were injected from the property, the reasons behind it, how the court, I don't know, there was a high court decision, and then a lower court overturned a higher court decision. So that's something that needed to be checked on. I think PS was there on that day. So I don't know whether you assist of that matter, you're briefed properly. If you can react to it, if not, then we can set a date where you can then get a comprehensive response to satisfy the Honorable Member.
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, what we were requested from our ministry on that matter was a statement, which we provided at that point in time. No one told us, and there is no correspondence from you or from Parliament asking us for more information on the matter. If there were those correspondence, we would have responded to the issue as it were. The issues that the Honourable Member of Parliament is raising, I mean, with tremendous respect, are now new to me because they're coming up at this particular time. The only point I can make at this point is that, Mr. Chairman, we dealt with the issue of Miwani as a security issue before ourselves as the ministry, and I think we stemmed the crisis that was there. Police are investigating certain dimensions leading to the death of some people who died in that particular episode. That's all I can say at the moment. If clarification is sought in a formal way, as always, Mr. Chairman, we are dutiful enough to give whatever information will be required to give.
Well, I know you may not have been there personally, but the office, and when I say that, I speak to the PS. The PS was there. It was an undertaking that you would get more information in regard to the issue of court case and how those I don't know whether there are 10 or people were killed. You know, he's saying 10, but we needed facts. So I think what we will do going forward, since there was an undertaking and it was not, that information was not contained in the letter, probably you're not prepared, we will then put it in terms of what he asked from the Hansard, because it was on Hansard, and then in our next engagement you can come with the responses to those.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking through the letter and trying to figure out whether there is anything else.
Yes, I've seen that.
And it's not in there.
That is why I said we need to give you some time so that we can bring out the issues that were raised, and then you can prepare when we're meeting next.
Much obliged, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So, Honorable Koyo,
Thank you.
You will let the Secretary do that for you.
Please.
Thank you. Sorry, today we have a lot of business. Now, there are other statements that you may have that have been requested by honorable members. But before you go there, we have this statement, and that is the last item, number 2, which speaks to the insecurity in Baringo, Isiolo, and Samburu, which we would request that, and I can see you have submitted a statement, that you can take us through this question, or this request, or came by way of various questions that were asked by members from those counties, intervention that was discussed in Parliament, and therefore, as a committee, on our own motion, we decided as the ones who oversight security and administration, to request your office to make a statement regarding this matter, so that we are not seen to be passive, and number 2, so that we are responsive to those sensitive issues happening in those counties. So, Honorable CS, you may now make that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. Again, on this matter, as I did in previous other matters we assist of, Mr. Chairman, I have provided a fairly detailed response, which I will summarize for the time being because it's already on record, and I've brought a full answer to the committee, highlight a number of issues, and I'll be ready to respond to any issues that arise therefrom. The areas of North Rift of our country, Mr. Chairman, and the parts of Eastern, this mainly refers to Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Samburu, parts of Turkana, and Isiolo, are prone for a long time to incessant conflict. It manifests itself first as cattle rustling or livestock rustling, but this conflict is driven by a number of factors. One, Mr. Chairman, is the political competition and political incitement. There are incidents where even political leaders have been caused by the police to record statements, and investigations are going on. There are other matters that NCIC is investigating in relation to some leaders from that part of our country. 2, the proliferation of illegal firearms. Because of our porous border with South Sudan, and sometimes we suspect, even from Somalia, the movement of small arms in this area has been rampant over a period of time. 3, the high levels of illiteracy and unemployment in this part of our country. 4, constant land dispute between, especially the Pokot on the one hand, and some other communities here, especially in the case of Baringo, the area around Mukutani. Then, you know, Mr. Chairman, the truth of the matter is that this is a very vast area with very rugged and difficult terrain in most cases. Needless to say also that the level of underdevelopment here has fueled more of these conflicts and more of these problems, as it were. We've looked at this and we have dealt with this. Successful government since independence have dealt with the problem of insecurity in this part of our country. Again, I need to point out to the committee, Mr. Chairman, that if you look at the challenges of insecurity in this region in a historical manner, you can notice clearly that thanks to devolution, more investments by the national government, and more development activity, the incidents keep, declining as we go by. The challenges we are having right now in Laikipia, which I'm going to talk about shortly, have also been brought about by the drought and the conflict and struggle for natural resources. Livestock farmers from some parts of the North Rift move into Laikipia, especially the Laikipia Nature Conservancy, because there's pasture there, and because the owners of Laikipia Nature Conservancy have done dams and water ponds and so on, and the livestock therefore can get water, can get pasture in some of these areas. So when you have livestock farmers moving from, or herders moving from Samburu and moving from Baringo into the LNC, for example, chances of conflict are real, because alongside their movement, they also encounter farmers, and on the periphery of the LNC, for example, there are also Kenyans engaged in other economic activities that they come into conflict with. Over the years, this influx of illegal firearms amongst these warring communities has caused a strain on the resources that we have as police. I've often pointed out, Mr. Chairman, and I think for the benefit of this committee, because you are our security committee, close to about 25% of our policing resources in the country are spent virtually on that belt of our country. We have kept increasing numbers of our police officers, and now we have come to a point where we are embedding specially trained teams. These teams are very few in the police service because we want to use them for specific duties. But because of the escalation and the challenges we have seen, especially in Laikipia, it has forced us to embed some of these special teams to deal with the, particularly the Pokot warriors who are in there, who have exhibited banditry habits or banditry activities as they keep attacking those who live in the environs of the Laikipia Nature Conservancy. Ultimately, Mr. Chairman, other than the border conflicts that arise from time to time between Isiolo and Meru, border conflicts that will arise between the areas of Turkana County, Samburu, and Baringo, the phenomenon of cat rustling and related conflicts is very common in this belt, as it were. What is important now, because this is a problem that has been with us since independence and it has existed over the years, is what the government is doing and what the government would like to do to stamp this out for a long time. As I pointed out, that we have continued to invest heavily in this part of our country. Invest in the sense that we are putting in more resources, we are building new capacities in this area. Just recently, as a result of the recent conflicts, Mr. Chairman, the National Security Council decided that we would ask the KDF to help do water bans and to provide water and such resources to the communities in that area. And a number of activities have been done. We have the proposed Ayen Dam, the Chesitate water pan, and the proposed Chesitate 2 water pan that is being done and supported by the KDF. Because this way then we are able to provide livelihoods and support to the livestock herders who live in these particular areas. Again, if you looked at the problem we are dealing with historically, you will notice that counties like West Pokot, which also used to experience some of these challenges, have been able to almost fully get out of this phase or this type of conflict as a result of the investments and the collaboration that has been done between the county government of West Pokot and the national government in building more schools, building more facilities where the youth and members of the population who could engage in meaningful economic activity are involved in. We hope that as we go forward, what will help this place is not more soldiers or more police officers and more equipment. It is administering the place more responsibly. We have created and operationalized over 50 new administrative units in this belt, as it were, to provide administration and security resources closer to the population. We have put in additional resources in terms of security personnel. Mr. Chairman, may it please the committee to note that all the candidates who are registered to sit for KCP this year sat for KCP, and they all received their results in this area thanks to the work that the security teams have been doing in this particular area. We continue to face the challenge of laxity in surrendering firearms by the local populations, but we've worked on a new program of providing the National Police Service reservists whom we embed within the communities to be able to work with the communities and provide security, more security to the communities, as it were. Finally, Mr. Chairman, we will continue to invest in development activities in this area. The solution, one of the solutions to this area is to ensure that we have more schools, more economic activities that people can engage in, that take their time away from the card rustling and the destructive activities they engage in. The other solution, which is not now an issue for the national government but for the local leaders, is for the local leaders to engage in alternative mechanisms for dispute resolution. Over the years, Mr. Chairman, in many parts of our country where we have conflicts, whether it's over pasture or over land or over resources, we resolve this by community leaders coming together and resolving these issues. The leaders, political, religious, and otherwise, from this part of our country are urged, and we consistently keep pleading with them to develop community-based mechanisms of resolving their conflicts. We have had age-old pasture and resource sharing agreements between communities in Kenya, because that is how we have stemmed conflicts, for example, between Garissa and Isiolo, sometimes in the past, between Kitui and Garissa in some parts, of the border in the past, because of resource sharing programs and resource sharing agreements that are reached between local community leaders. We also urge the leaders of this part of our country to also develop those mechanisms of engaging and negotiating how resources can be shared without, all the time causing these kinds of problems. However, because of increased activity of the bandits in Laikipia, the National Security Council was forced last week to insist that we intensify activity. That's why we closed the airspace in that area for 30 days, so that we are able to carry out aerial surveillance uninterrupted, and we are able to carry out aerial contact with the bandits without interference with any movement. And that will stay in place for 30 days. The report I have from our commanders is that we are making very good progress in that respect, and we believe that by the end of the 30 days, we will have sorted out the problem in that part of our country. But I would like to assure you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee, that we are very, very committed to ensuring that we have a peaceful transition, that the electoral cycle is not interrupted, that we have peaceful elections, no one is evicted from their place, and that those of our citizens who are engaged in livestock farming, who sometimes get into problems because of the drought and so on, we are trying to assist them by building these dams, building these ponds, and so on. We hope the county governments affected in these particular areas could also work with us to try and develop this infrastructure. Finally, the government is engaged right now intensely with the two development partners to do a key security infrastructure, that is the Nanyuki Rumuruti road, that will open up that place and provide additional infrastructure for our own security operations, and that will enable the inhabitants of that place live much more peacefully and transact very easily. Mr. Chairman, I respectfully submit.
Thank you, Honorable CS. It's very important for you to make that statement, going by the apprehension that people have and what you have seen, the activities that have not been very pleasing in that area. But critically, it's important to note that you have confirmed that all students did their exams, albeit in difficult situation, but they did. That is something worth an effort, worth recognizing. But at the same time, we wonder if there are people who are bringing in illegal arms. Why are you not able to seal at the border point where previously it has been presented here that they are coming from the porous borders? Why are you not able to seal from that point so that we don't have them? So that then you are able to flush out to those using within, and then probably you can work at minimizing those ones that are in the hands of those bandits.
Mr. Chairman, the fact of the matter, which I think all of us need to live with, is that part of our problem is where we are located right now. I mean, look at our neighborhood. We have porous borders with Somalia. We have a porous border with South Sudan. DRC military activity has been going on in that part of our continent for a long time, and it's possible that there is movement of people. The truth of the matter is this: however hard we try to police these borders, it's like when we are fighting contraband goods across the country. We do our best using formal crossing points, and we monitor these formal crossing points. But these thugs also find panya routes through which they cross into the country with these small arms, as it were. The truth of the matter, Mr. Chairman, is that when you look at historically, if you take the data, and I can put up a graph and show you, over a period of time, because of collaboration with neighboring governments, because of the surveillance systems we have created, even that movement has actually declined significantly. But it has not declined to zero because of the insecurity going on across the border, as it were. So when the Toposa, for example, from South Sudan on the other side cross over, sometimes they cross over with the small arms, and some of these arms end up in the hands of wrong people, as it were. I promise you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, we are doing the very best we can on this matter. I know we will succeed because I can see the trends and how we are moving on. It's been a tough exercise, and it's not going to end in a day or two or even in a month. But when you look at where we were 4 or 5 years ago and where we are today, honestly speaking, we have made tremendous progress. And now we have even greater collaboration, for example, with the government of Uganda on this matter. That's why I'm very optimistic myself, that if we are going to have a challenge, it's now going to remain singularly on the border between us and Southern Sudan, because our collaboration with the government of Uganda is making it much easier. Interactions between the Karamoja on the other side of the border and the Turkana on this side of the border, it's even much more peaceful. We are even negotiating, we have recently negotiated resource sharing programs where our livestock farmers can actually get water on the other side of the border if it's too dry on our side of the border, and that has worked very well. I agree with you, it can frustrate sometimes, but we can see a decline in this. But until there is sustainable peace in Somalia, sustainable peace in South Sudan, unless, and you can see what happened in Ethiopia the other day, all these things affect us. And then when people cross down into our country, then they find ways of moving around away from formal routes and formal infrastructure. They carry small arms with them. And we've tried to mob this. We will be even more helped if the communities themselves and the leaders spoke one language with us. In areas where we have succeeded, for example, in West Pokot, it is because the local leadership and ourselves have been speaking the same language. In some of these areas of North Rift, for example, we have challenges. I have gone to meetings, Mr. Chairman, and my colleagues who are here can bear me out. When I meet political leaders and they tell me that is the first time even they themselves are meeting, which means there is some work that needs to be done by others, but we will stay the course. We are not going to give up on this matter. We are committed to doing it. We can see we are making progress. It has been tough and it's a challenging situation, but I promise the committee we can see light at the end of the tunnel and we'll sort this out.
All right, thank you, CS. I know we had a team that visited Samburu from this committee and Laikipia, and then we're going to do a report on the same. But there was presentation made here before this committee by Honorable Kamuren, a member for one of the constituencies in Baringo, and he seemed to indicate that he has lost 2 of the 5 wards to bandits, that they're in the hands of bandits, and they have flushed out all the residents from there. And he seemed to offer some solutions, if only you could give an ear, that them as political leaders would want also to engage with you, so that, and I think you have spoken to that in this statement, that so that collectively you can get a solution to what is happening, especially in his constituency. So I think it's a matter you need to take up.
Mr. Chairman, I spent a whole day in Nakuru with the leaders of Baringo. I have listened to Honorable Kamren several times before. We have done everything they asked us to do. They asked us to operationalize administrative areas. They asked us to, we have done. They asked us to increase the number of security personnel on the ground. We have done. They asked us to bring in additional resources from some of our special. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, it's a matter that is quite important. Not that yours is not, but proceed.
I was saying, Mr. Chairman, that I spent the whole day with the leaders of Baringo and Elgeo Marakwet in Nakuru, together with my colleagues, the Inspector General Police and the commanding team, GSU Commandant and everybody. We have listened to them. I think, frankly, they have useful suggestions to make. We have implemented all of them. They asked us to add administrative units and operationalize some of them. The process is going on, the areas where we have advertised to hire chiefs and so on. They asked us for additional security resources, we have provided. They asked us for NPR. Mr. Chairman, I can report to this committee that we have already actually appointed, trained, and created an NPR team in that part of the country, embedded it with the population as it were. They asked us to intensify activity to move the bandits out of parts of Baringo. We have done. They asked us to put investment in doing some dams and enabling the Pokot warriors and Pokot herders to get water on the other side of Baringo. I have already read the 3 of them that we have done, and KDF is doing more because they are still on site to ensure that they do more of these water bans and so on. We are on course. As I said, this has been a tough experience, especially because, if I have to be very honest with you, Mr. Chairman, this is a matter that was not substantively addressed by our preceding regimes for a very long time. I mean, this is an area of the country where people didn't pay specific attention on how to solve the problems. We are moving in now to do, imagine if each regime since independence had done even 2 or 3 dams. But now we'll not be having the problems that we're having in that area. Now we are taking it up to ensure that it works out for us. And we are asking every leader involved to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, to reduce the level of incitement and mobilize community to participate in solution seeking. Because if we build a measure of cohesion and get our people together, build schools like has happened, what Honorable Kamren has done in his constituents, doing more schools and expanding learning opportunities. That is how we will get these young men who are moving around with the illegal firearms, attacking and raiding people's homes, to school and to more meaningful economic activity, as it were. So we are on course on this matter, and as always, we don't mind sitting down any day or night they want us to sit down with them. If they have additional suggestions to give us, Mr. Chairman, I undertake before you, we are absolutely ready to do whatever will be required to do by our leaders.
Very well, well done. I think those efforts are recognized in terms of what you're doing, and keep working for our people so that you can reduce the agony they are going through. The Honorable Oku Kaunya, who has been security rated sector before becoming a member of parliament, has an AOB which I want him to hold on to until we exhaustively deal with this issue of Samburu, Baringo and Isiolo. So I'll ask members who are interested in this, in terms of the insecurity situation in Baringo, Isiolo and Samburu. Those who are interested, you may pick up the chance. Honorable Mbugu.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, CS, for a very good response. My concern is just
in your opening remark, you said about political incitement and pronouncement, which is meant by maybe us, the leaders. In this belt, what has the government done to bring these leaders to account? Because 50 years down the line, we cannot have leaders inciting each other or among communities because there is law. What have you been unable to deal with the leaders who incite their own to cause this conflict? Because that is what you said, CS. I would want to hear that. And also, lastly, there's a time there was a lot of fightings or in Baringo. And there's a way that time the government dealt with that area so decisively, we have never heard of those kind of fighting again. Has the government done enough, or has the government been decisive enough in dealing with this insecurity in these areas? Because if you allow them to continue, they may eventually, even and that is being done, they may eventually also other areas which are currently peaceful may pick from here. So that what we do, as much as we say we don't need a lot of deterrent, it is to educate and all that and all that. What really, if I may use the word force, is the government doing to ensure that these things do not recur? Because I was surprised when you say over 50% of our security forces actually, they are deployed there, meaning resources and even personnel, meaning only 50% is being served by the rest of the country, which is a very alarming data anyway, if you ask me. Because these are less than quarter of the counties in Kenya, consuming 50% of our police force and resources. What can we do to ensure that at least we get what we are supposed to do to be as a country, Mr. CS? And I ask this out of respect. I know the government has done a lot, but I feel as if it is not good enough, or it is not the best we could have done as a country. Because like here, there before there were no issues of conflict. I think I'm hearing they have started just recently. It was not as bad as other areas, but now you can see where Laikipia is going. If we don't tame it, from Laikipia maybe we come to New Kenya and all that. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable CS, that including the AOB, it should take us no more than 5 minutes. So if you can briefly respond, and if there's any need to engage further, we can always invite you.
Mr. Chairman, I need to correct something, because you know the media is here and statistics is very important. I said we're spending 25% of our general policing resources, not 50%, 25% of our general policing resources. Now, the question is, are there cases where have we been unable to deal with incitement? No, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we have cases in court, ongoing cases in court where we have leaders that we have actually taken to court because of this. The matter is going on in court, leaders that we have had arrested and they are going through the court process, and that a decision will be made not by us but by the court. Our colleagues at the NCIC have been working very hard on this matter and they are going on. So there are cases of incitement that we are prosecuting. We are not unable to deal with this, but we wish we didn't have to do this, or we wish they would be sorted out even at community levels without us having to arrest a member of parliament, because some of those cases actually involve members of parliament as it were. Secondly, have we done enough? Honorable members, Mr. Chairman, we've done enough. You know, in every conflict, we have to look at the character of the conflict. The character of the conflict we were dealing with in Mount Elgon was different from the character of the conflict we are dealing with in North Rift. We believe actually that the solution to the character of the conflict we have in North Rift is a development solution. That is what will deal with us. What we are dealing with is not hardcore, driven crime. Because even at the National Security Council, I went to the council the other day to seek to list the various Pokot warrior teams as outlawed organizations like MRC and so on. But when we reviewed the matter at the council could not make that decision because these are citizens of our country. what they're engaged in is they have taken cat rustling and livestock raids too far, as it were, and it has been made easier because they can access small arms that are flowing through, some of our porous borders. It is not the hardcore criminality that we are dealing with, like we're dealing with Mount Elgon of rape and plunder and so on and so forth. So even when we adopt those tactics, we have to look at the sustainable method. Secondly, this is in the middle of our country, almost, the population that we are dealing with is almost at the center of our country. Actions that we involve in as a government to try and bring an end to this banditry must also bear in mind that we have to build a sustainable environment of inclusion and integration, because these people have to live with their neighbors, as it were. That's why, as government, we have taken the decision that this is a development solution. And yes, we will apply the firm force of the law, but at the same time integrate it with deliberate development initiatives to try and intervene. Because we believe that if we stayed on this trajectory, the investments the government is making, for example, to avail water in that belt of the country, by the end of the next financial year, with the budgeted resources we have from the Ministry of Irrigation, we'll have covered, some sufficient grounds that will reduce the amount of conflict that we are seeing at this moment. Secondly, with the livestock offtake program of Kenya Meat Commission, and now that Kenya Meat Commission has been revived and is doing spectacularly well, we are going to introduce the populations in this country to a new economically viable livelihood that will be more attractive to them, as it were. So working together. And thirdly, of course, if we invest in critical infrastructure, like I've talked about the road between Nanyuki and Rumuruti, this again will open up the area and discourage some of these criminal activities. We will win this war, not in a day or in a week, but I think within the next year or two, we should be fine, because we can see as I said, light at the end of the tunnel. When you look at this, on an historical plane, and look at the incidents we had in the past and what we have now, the situations we had even in 2017, Mr. Chairman, if you remember, just before the election at a time like this, the situation we were dealing with was remarkably different from what we are dealing with right now, which means that the investments we are putting are borne fruit. We are likely to achieve more by greater engagement and greater economic investment, and then we will get there as it were. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we have stretched the time so much, Honorable CS, Honorable Members, and Honorable Okukaunya MP had requested me, which I acceded as a chair, to address a matter of AOB, and that matter is in regard to what happened recently. And I'm hoping we shall engage that in about 3 minutes, because another committee is coming right in now for engagement in their business. And that matter is regarding the stoning of the helicopter of one of the senior Kenyans, which caused anxiety in some quarters. And therefore, I'll want us to be as specific as that. And I'll let Honorable Kaunya ask that AOB. You respond in the manner you can, up to the extent you can, and then we'll leave it there. Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, it's a matter of national concern and public, really a public concern that 3 days ago, while the ODM leader and the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga was attending the funeral of the late Jackson Kibor in Uasin Gishu, Soi Kebenes in particular, that rowdy group of people attacked the vehicles, including the chopper that was being used by the leader. That is a worrying incident that would like Chair to request that the CS could be able to update this committee on the status of investigation into that attack. And Chair, it's also a worrying incident considering the political time in which we are preparing for elections, because for sure is an issue that requires very firm and decisive action to deter even in the future such actions or incidences that can really bring us problems in this country. Because CS, I remember, Chairman, that the incidences we had in 2007, we all recall, started with this kind of small incidences. And if we don't deal firmly, CS, it will skyrocket and go out of hand. So CS, my question really is to update this committee on the status of investigation and really to assure us as leaders, and I think as the country, that these incidences should not occur again, so that we do not, at least measures that are necessary, whether measures have been taken also to ensure the security of the Honorable former Prime Minister and other leaders who are engaged in the campaigns is actually guaranteed. We really need that assurance, CS. Thank you, Chair.
Sensitive as it is, Honorable CS, you may now comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. What happened in Wasingishu last week is unfortunate, regrettable, and quite frankly, from a security point of view, annoying and unnecessary, because there was no need to do that. The police are hot on the heels of the perpetrators of those acts. Investigations started immediately. It happened. It is emerging from the evidence that we have collected, and the evidence that was collected on that night, that was actually a premeditated act. It was planned because the suspects who were arrested with hoards of thousands of shillings broken down in 50 shilling notes, and they have taken statements. Clearly there must have been some choreography behind that, because it's not coincidental that these suspects had so much money broken in 50 shilling notes, and some of them, who are distributing this money around that particular time. The police have acted swiftly and decisively. We have 17 suspects whom we have taken to court. Investigations are going on, and we are still exploiting forensically some of the evidence we have, including phone numbers of the suspects and several other things that the DCI is doing that I would not like to discuss in an open meeting. We will go the direction investigations will point us. As I've said before, none of us, we all read the Constitution, none of us above the law. I am not, even if I'm Minister for Security or the Inspector General. We always have to act strictly according to the law, and fortunately we are a country that is governed by laws. However, I need to point out that these incidents are isolated. I don't think, first of all, and I want to say categorically, Mr. Chairman, with your kind indulgence and honorable members of the committee, that I don't think this incident speaks about even the county called Wasingishu. It's a small group of people who engaged in this, and they are criminals. They are being dealt with as criminals. Since this year started and the movement around the country, we have had about 4 incidents of this kind. There was an incident in Busia involving the deputy president. We have people we have arrested who are in court on the matter. There was an incident in Kondere in Kisumu, which we dispersed, a rowdy mob of people in a meeting that the deputy president addressed. And then there was the incident in Nairobi, again, which involved conflict between groups of youth who have been given money or paid or ferried to the meeting and so on. And then there is this incident in Wasingishu. I don't think this speaks to a trend or a pattern that is emerging in the country. So my first assurance to the committee is that we haven't picked any such information. And Mr. Chairman, as we have been planning for the elections and so on, we have infrastructure across the country and we are picking up information. I don't think this speaks to any pattern that is emerging. It's an isolated incident, as it were. Nonetheless, it's an incident we'll investigate, and go to the furthest extent that the law will take us. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, I will ask you and the honorable members of this committee that I think we are duty bound as the Minister of Interior to brief you on our preparations for elections. and the security arrangements we have made. We have more resources than we had in 2017. We have more personnel than we had. Our police population ratios have significantly reduced. We are prepared, we are sufficiently resourced to support the conduct of the general elections. I, however, must hasten to add that the conduct of elections is not our responsibility, it's the responsibility of the IBC. We will support the IBC to ensure that they conduct the elections. Where we'll be called upon to provide services, we will provide services. Finally, it's a point I need to say, which is, it may appear necessarily sensitive, but it's good that I be very sincere with you as a public servant. The greatest danger and challenge we face as a country during this electoral cycle, more than ever before, is the phenomenon of voter bribery and the renting of crowds and so on. You know, there's a feature that is emerging in the country, and we have traced it across the country, where politicians are spending money to pay youths, move huge groups of people, ferry others at night and so on. Sometimes I don't know whether people accurately estimate the dangers that are involved in this. When you move people from one part of the country to another part of the country, they're traveling at night, some of them are traveling on matatus and so on and so forth, so that you can swell your numbers in a particular place. This phenomenon of renting crowds, you know, trying to posture for popularity, or what you may call pretended populism, is what is actually going to hurt us, as it were. In 3 of those incidents I outlined earlier, it was a case where groups of people who had been given money clashed. Because you see, if you come to my area and I have an opponent there, I will mobilize, and my opponent is also mobilizing for you. And if we are mobilizing in opposite directions and we don't have the opportunity to give our various groups a similar brief, they will fight. And that's why I said earlier that police cannot be expected to mediate bribery contracts, because if I bribe people and you also bribe people, it's not upon the police now to figure out who was bribed how and who should behave how. That is the job of those who have bribed them and brought them. So the danger we face this year, and it's good that I say this very openly and sincerely to you as the committee in charge of security, what we have picked up that is going to be a danger in this year's campaign process and elections is voter bribery and the renting of groups of people, young groups of people and so on, who are being paid money, whether they are border ferried from one end to another end. That is going to become a problem. And if it doesn't stop as you move along towards the elections, because every group will be mobilizing and every group will be renting their own, you know, motorcycles and their own border people, the clashes will intensify. So it's upon us as leaders to decide how we are going to conduct ourselves, because all those things we are seeing, like what we saw in Wasingishu, it's indisputable. All those fellows who were arrested, they had money. Who would have? How can it be coincidental that you are carrying thousands of shillings broken in 50 shilling notes? You must have planned for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, okay. Thank you, CS, for that brief. If we need any further engagement on that, we shall let you know. But we are also very, very hopeful that you are not going to have sacred cows that are not going to face the full force of the law, because it's very important. It gets to a level sometimes that you find you let some people go loose with whatever crime they have committed. This time around, even us as politicians, we have the goodwill. We do not want our country to break down. So do your work. We shall give you the support. I will accord you the support that is necessary so that we achieve peace during and even after elections. And finally, if there are people who are moving crowds and renting, you have the system, you have the equipment. Call them out for who they are so that we know in time. That is very, very important, so that you can create confidence in our nation, and also people know that they are safe even as we go to the elections. So we will leave it there because there's another committee coming in. I know members want to engage you, Honorable CS. Every time you come, you have a wealth of knowledge which they want you to share, and in fact, of course, information. But allow me, members, to say this, that we shall invite the CS, especially so, to give us in-depth details of preparation for elections and how you'll support IEBC, which you haven't told us, and which you are volunteering that you're able to share with us. So we shall create time for you to engage with us on that, together with, and now Honorable Sosi has come, together with this question number 074 on Safaricom. As much as you say it may hurt some of the entities, there is a level of information that you can share with us. And because we are obligated by the House to give response, and we must, you can as well share with us any confidential report regarding the same to the depth that you think doesn't hurt any one of those entities. And in our next engagement then, we shall engage in camera over the same, so that you can give us any other smaller details that we may require after we receive that report. And I think that we do now, for now, Honorable Sosi, because you went out, not that you disappeared, but also that there is another committee that's coming in, and I have spoken to what needs to be done about your question in terms of a confidential report, and then we'll, next engagement with the CS, we will engage in camera. Thank you. Yes, and there are people waiting to get in, Honorable
Chair, sorry, I had stepped out because we had a House Business Committee meeting and they needed a quorum. I have heard the CS and I think I'm okay with the request, save for the fact that he mentioned that the investigations are ongoing. But from the information I have, yes, the investigations are ongoing, but the individuals from Safaricom were summoned to appear before DCI, and they haven't appeared. And I wonder how the investigations are still ongoing when they have not appeared. So I just wanted the committee to note that.
We have noted, well noted, it may be or not in that confidential report, but definitely it will come out when we do in-camera engagement with the CS, and I want to believe you also be there. So with that, members, I want to thank you very much, CS, for availing yourself to tackle matters before us. If in case you have any statement that may have been asked by members and you have it, you haven't read, it's good enough to table it. I'll read them in the chamber later on, today or tomorrow, and then going forward. In terms of the next engagement, we shall let you know by notice through a letter, including details of what we require you to prepare on before you come before the committee. Members, thank you very much.